in part C, we pick up where we left off from part B, where Clodius's body was sent in the litter back to Rome. So our first sentence is going to go all the way from here down to circum statit. So you want to look for some things to get you started. We've got per latum est, which is going to be our verb. So we'll start off with that. And then the subject of this verb has to be neuter because of this um. And then right here, corpus, while it looks masculine, is actually neuter. And that's going to be the subject of our sentence. So the body, this has to be genitive. We've talked about that. There's only one Clodius, so the I makes him genitive. So the body of Clodius was brought. And then we have a prepositional phrase. So the preposition is ante, and it takes an accusative. So we have primam. Noctis is not accusative, but horam is. So we're going to put all of that together. So before the first hour, and then this is going to be genitive. All right, now we have this word, we have a que. Remember that que jumps in front. So we're going to have another subject and verb situation here. So we have the body of Clodius is brought, and then we want to look for our next subject. Infimi is an adjective. It looks like it could be nominative, but plebis is not nominative. That's going to be genitive. Likewise, servorum is also genitive. Maxima looks like it could be nominative, but let's keep going because that's an adjective. Multitudo. Now, multitudo is tricky because it does not look nominative, but it is. So this is going to be our subject. It is a feminine nominative singular noun, which tells us that this maxima goes with it. Magno does not go with multitudo. Magno is ablative, masculine or neuter, singular. Multitudo is not. So we want to keep those separate. So we have maxima multitudo as our subject. We're going to jump all the way to the end of the sentence for our verb. Circumstated, which means surrounded. Alrighty, so we've got the biggest multitude. This is where you can fit in your genitives. So of the infimi plebis and of servorum. So a big crowd of all those people. Surrounded, and now we want to find our direct object. This is tricky as well because we don't have anything other than this positum, which is a perfect passive participle from pono, ponere, postui, postitus. This is not going to be our direct object, but it will describe it. Nothing else looks accusative. It's going to be corpus. So remember, corpus from up here is neuter, like we talked about with the and the nominative and the accusative are the same. So that there it is acting nominatively, here accusatively. So these people surrounded the body, and then we'll go positum, describing the body, having been placed in the atrio, and this is a fourth declension noun, so it is genitive. And then this magno luctu is an ablative here. I would say something like with a great light. Alrighty, now our next sentence starts with a verb. When a sentence starts with a verb like this, it usually is emphasizing the action. So something was increasing, however. So let's see, what is the subject? Look for a nominative coming up here. Here we go, uxor, the wife, again, genitive, just like up there, of Clodius, and her name is Folia. So the wife of Clodius was increasing. What was she increasing? Your book gives you a little bit of help with this. The hatred of the deed. So she's trying to stir up some anger here in the people by really emphasizing how horrible it is that Clodius has died. Next, we have a quae, which is a relative pronoun, and it gives us a relative clause. So we want to figure out what the antecedent to quae is. You don't want to look too far back. Your antecedent is going to have the same gender and the same number. In this case, this is going to be feminine and singular, which means folia is our antecedent. So who, being folia, was showing, so there's our subject and our verb, and then we're looking for a direct object. That's going to be vulnera. Vulnera is another neuter noun, and so that A is accusative plural here. So she was showing his wounds, cum effusa lamentatione. She's really, really laying it on thick here. All right, So next, we've got this comparative adjective major. Think about like major, if you make that I into a J, and that's going to mean bigger. It is nominative, and it's going to be describing our subject. So look and see if you can spot that subject. It's multitudo, just like earlier. So a bigger crowd. And then here's our genitive to qualify that crowd. What kind of crowd? A bigger crowd of. When your word ends in a dem, it means the same. And then this word is in your book, and it just means kind. So a bigger crowd of the same kind. So the same kind is up there, of common people and slaves. Confluxen. This word is given to you in your text as well. All right, and then we'll put these together. Poster a da, ablative of time, and another ablative of time. Alrighty, and then we have our que. Just going to jump in front. And several notable people. So these are adjectives describing the people. And our verb is we see sunt. This is going to be an ablative absolute. Your book tells you this. Notice that there's an NT in our participle. So that means we'll translate it as while. So while they were urging. The subject is going to be this word vulgus. Vulgus is a neuter noun. The vulgus is the crowd. So we have our subject. Let's look and see if we can spot our verb. So we have a few verbs in here. We have erat, but that's going to be within this clause. So let's put this together. Then we have an ut, and we have another verb here, but that's going to be in this ut clause. And then we have this verb, de tulit, and post to it. Those are going to be our main verbs. So the crowd, de tulit, from de fero, de fere, de tuli, de latus, carried. You're going to jump up. Remember, this word corpus is neuter, and it's going to make more sense for this to be our subject, our direct object, than our subject, because we wouldn't say the body carried the crowd. We'd say the crowd carried the body. And then this word imperitum could describe either vulgus or corpus. So then look in your book and see that it means ignorant. So is the body ignorant or is the crowd ignorant? Probably the crowd. So an ignorant crowd carried the body. And then we have a couple UMs here. Those are going to be describing the body. So I'm just going to parentheses that together. So how is the body described? Naked, and this word calcatum is technically a perfect passive participle, meaning having been trampled. So we might say the naked and trampled body. So the ignorant crowd carried the naked and trampled body. This would be Clodius's body. And where did they carry it? Right here, in forum. Then we want to pick up these two clauses right here. Sicut is going to mean just as it had been placed in lecto on the bed, like probably the funeral bed. And then we have our ut clause here. We do have a subjunctive. Posent is an imperfect subjunctive, so we'll say something like, I would say this is going to be a purpose clause, so that the wounds is our subject, were able, present passive infinitive, to be seen. So the body, the naked and trampled body, had been placed on the bed so that the wounds were able to be seen. So remember that Folio was trying to show off those wounds. So it's carried into the body, and they placed it, so the crowd placed it on the funeral pyre. Remember, that's the fire that they used to burn the bodies after death. Okay, so there, pro contione, and you can see in your book that contione means before, pro contione means before a public meeting. Plancus et Pompeius, qui, relative clause, and then they facerunt. So that's our subject. There's our verb. So they made. And this invidium is the same word we saw up here in 22. They made hatred towards Milo. So this we'll just translate this as toward. And then this relative clause is going to tell us about Plancus and Pompeius. So who were supporters, and this takes a dative So some verbs take a dative direct object. So they were supporters of the competitors of Milo, which would mean that they're probably pro Clodius. So they made the hatred towards Milo. So they're really inciting Milo for this attack. Next, our subject is going to be the populace. And then we're followed by this ablative absolute. You'll notice that we do not have a participle. Duce means leader. Sextus Clodius is a name, different sextus than the previous sextus. And scriba is also a noun meaning a scribe. So we're going to translate this using the word with. So with the leader, Sextus Clodius, being the scribe. The people, notice again this word corpus looks like it's nominative, can be nominative or accusative. Since we already have a subject, it's going to be our direct object. That Clodii is going to be genitive, so say of Publius Clodius. And then here's our verb. So the people in Tulit, from Pharaoh, Fere, Tuli, Latius, brought the body into the curia. And remember, our quae is going to jump in front. And the people burned the body with all of these things. So these are probably things that would have been in the Senate house. Alrighty, then we've got this little clause, quo igne. We don't see this, we haven't seen this too much yet, but sometimes you'll have your quo just going with igne to kind of qualify it. So we'll say like in maybe this fire. Then we have an et followed by an et. So we're going to translate our first one as both, and our second one is and. So it just won't make sense to say in this fire and this happened and this happened. So we'll say both, new subject, the Senate house is ipsa goes with curia. They both have a endings. So the Senate house itself, flagrawit, another word for burned, blazed up, something like that. Quoque means also, and likewise the Porcia Basilica, so that's the name of the basilica, followed by a relative clause. The antecedent has to be feminine and singular since it's the subject here, which was. So it's going to refer back to the basilica. Antecedent is basilica. So which was juncta. We'll put this with your verb. So which was joined. You could say had been joined if you want to be super, super specific. And this AE is going to mean to it. This refers to the curia. So the basilica and the curia are right next to each other. I believe if you look in your book, under the passage C, you'll see that there's a map that designates where these things were. So likewise, the Porcia Basilica, Busta S, was burned.